just a tidbit of my personal story with our daughter's care needs and the pregnancy. I really struggled when both kids were young. And it was very difficult to take care of my own self. And that did not go well. I ended up having a severe mental health crisis. And so I would just say, first and foremost, we have to take care of ourselves.
You're listening to the Water Prairie Chronicles, a podcast that supports parents of children with disabilities by sharing the stories of individuals who have grown up with disabilities and the organizations available to help parents along the way. Stay connected with us by clicking the subscribe button and leave us a comment if you want to join in on the conversation. Welcome back to the Water Prairie Chronicles. Today we have a special guest on with us, and this is Kristin Faith Evans. Kristin is an author, a speaker, a mental health specialist, a wife, a mom of 2 beautiful children, and many more things that I can't even tell you about. So I'm going to have Kristin introduce herself to us. So welcome, Kristin.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, I play many roles right now. First, my husband and I celebrated 20 years of marriage this year.
Congratulations.
Which is quite a feat. Thank you. That's a different story. And I do have 2 beautiful children who have different rare genetic disorders and complex needs. I am an author and a speaker, and I have my master's in social work. So my passions kind of collide there.
Perfect. All right. So you mentioned that both of your children have rare genetic disorders. Can you talk about that a little bit? Let's start with your oldest child. So what can you tell about us, and when did you first learn about it?
Mm-hmm. Our son is about to turn 16 in August. So this was, I was pregnant 16 years ago, and pregnancy went great. He was born what they believed healthy and typical, but very quickly he began becoming very sick, and the doctors could not figure out what was wrong. And by the time he was 6 months old, he ended up on a feeding tube. He was having seizures. He just could not keep anything down. So he was failure to thrive. And the doctors were just baffled. And so they reran all the genetic testing again, every single test again, all the different tests for different diseases. And finally it came back that he was the 13th known case in the world at that time with his specific genetic metabolic disorder. He's missing a protein to digest a specific amino acid, valine.
Okay.
And when he was born in Illinois, that was not on the heel prick because it was so rare.
Right.
So treatment was trial and error for him since he was the 13th known case. And there were, I think, 2 papers on it in terms of what they had seen in the other 12 children. And once we got him medically the treatment he needed, he started growing, he started gaining weight, right. The seizures stopped, his nutrition. Then the developmental red flags began. And so that began our journey of saving him developmentally after already trying to save him medically. He still has many medical complications today, but he's after all the interventions that we began when he was little, he's doing very well. When he was 3, I became pregnant with my daughter. And that pregnancy was a nightmare from the beginning. And we knew that something was not right. And found out at 20 weeks that she has a severe chromosomal deletion called Cree-Duchenne syndrome. Her 5th chromosome, the short arm, has a chunk missing, we'll just say. Okay. It's pretty severe. And she was not supposed to survive. She did.
Wow.
And she was in the NICU for 3 months. And her life has been very challenging. Medically, she's very fragile. She has a lot of different complications. She's on a feeding tube, goes into serious respiratory problems. We spent a lot of time in the ER and hospital. And developmentally, she is moderately to severe intellectually disabled, and can walk. They said she'd never walk, but she runs. She falls a lot, but she runs, and she is just full of life. She is just the joy of the room. So my day I can make my plans, but my day can end up looking like anything.
It sounds like it. The Now your daughter, how old is she now?
She turned 12 in January, so
Okay.
12 and a half.
Right. So you said they were 3 years apart or 4 years apart now.
I think by the time she was born, it was about 3.5 years,
Okay.
3.5 years apart.
So
Just
you were
so,
so you were juggling a toddler, almost preschooler, with all of this at the same time.
yes, with lots and lots of different needs. Mm-hmm.
So looking back with your son, let's start with that. So you had the feeding issues at first, and nutrition issues because his body wasn't getting
Mm-hmm.
what he needed. So is that easier to control now for him?
He is doing very well. However, a little illness can send him to the ER.
Okay.
His body, he becomes dehydrated very, very quickly, even though he's drinking liters of Gatorade. So
Right.
his body goes into hypovolemic shock, and any little illness just really wears down his body with the metabolic disorder. So we have to be very, very careful.
So I know that there's more research in recent years than even 10 years ago of digestive issues, of
Mm-hmm.
the use of enzymes to try to help and all. And so I'm sure some of our listeners have faced, if not the same things, similar types of things with their children. Do you have any advice for a young parent who's looking at the nutritional side of things, as far as what is it that they're looking for to know, maybe a red flag to pursue more testing or to ask questions of the doctor, and even some tips on those early feeding times for your son?
Mm-hmm. I would say, now this is going to be the very professional, technical first answer. Go with your parent's heart.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said, listen to your mother's heart. And I got to tell you, every single time that feeling in my gut that's telling me I should speak up, I should ask, something's wrong, it's right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is knowledge is power. I am a research nerd. But however, go to reputable professional
Yes.
sites
Yes.
like the National Institute of Health and the CDC and Mayo Clinic and places like that, not just any article on the web. And then it's very delicate. I actually wrote a whole post about how to balance going in and being assertive and having done your homework, but at the same time, finessing that conversation and collaborating with doctors,
Yeah.
and, asking their opinion. So it's a very delicate balance. But I would say do your homework, listen to your gut, ask a lot of questions. If you don't feel like the answer or the path the doctor's taking is right, if you're able, get a second opinion. Just keep pushing.
Did you ever feel like you were being dismissed when you were asking questions?
Yes, there was one doctor in particular who, it was very clear, did not like it when parents asked questions, and we got a different doctor. There's only been, I can count on my fingers the times I've changed doctors, and I have learned I should have done it sooner. I should have been more assertive sooner a lot of times. So I've learned, if you have that gut feeling, go ahead and do it.
That's
See if you can
I'm
change
I'm I'm
doctors.
I'm glad that you brought this up, because I think that is an important skill. I didn't know I had that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I was a rule follower. You go to this doctor, you do what the doctor says. But like you're saying, that mom instinct, there's something that's not quite right. And it's not the
Mm-hmm.
worrier of a mom of a first child. there's something that you're seeing that there's a reason that that's flagging for you. And it might be that everything's okay, but you need a doctor to say, you know what, this is all okay because, and then have them explain to you what's going on. And I will say here, because this sounds kind of medical, what we're talking about, we're not medical professionals that are sharing this. This is purely for just education and information. You need to do your research on this, and to seek medical advice on these things. But I did have one doctor, and it was a great pediatrician for the kids. And I can remember with Emily at her 4-week checkup, just telling the doctor, you know, there's something wrong. And he was like, no, she's just looking at something else. It's like, no, can you just watch her for about 10 minutes? And within 10 minutes, he was on the phone calling the children's hospital. So he agreed that. Now, he thought it was something totally different, but that's okay. It got us to our next step that we needed to be. So and I learned from that sometimes it was okay to question. But as you say, you need to do it with grace. You need to come in as a team player, because the doctor is part of your child's team and will always be there as part of that team.
Right. It's a difficult balance. And there's a lot of times, like in the same hospital, they don't like for you to see a different doctor in the same clinic for a second opinion. So it is a very delicate balance. I'm not saying if a doctor, you know, doesn't give you the right answer, change doctors. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying really, really be assertive and keep pushing if you feel like something's not right.
Back to your son again. So for that early time, I think that was some great advice for our parents there. As your son has grown, has he gone on and defined hobbies and interests that he's getting involved in? Because he's getting older now, and I don't want you to share anything personal about him, but as far as for our parents of looking at those young children now, what are they thinking about like 10 years from now, into elementary school? Are their kids going to probably be able to be in there with the other kids, having fun, having games, having clubs, things like that?
You know, as a young mom, I'll just say it can be really hard, you know, parent, dad, it can be really hard because you worry about, is my child going to be able to do these things? Are they going to be able to do social things? Are they going to be able to be independent? And that can be really, really hard because you just don't know. And I agonized over that. He's finding his own way, things he does enjoy. He's a science and math guy. So he loves computer programming and definitely things like that. And wants to be a doctor. So he's doing some pre-med programs. And so he's finding his niche and, you know, his group of people. You know, we tried to help steer him one way, you know, with social pragmatic groups and you know, and different, tried to play dates and just realized, you know, I just have to let him follow what he enjoys and his personality.
We had a guest on recently, and that was one of the things we were talking about, is that the school years were a little bit harder because he felt a little more isolated. But he said by the time he got to college, he kind of found his people there. And it took that maturity for everyone, him and for his peers, to realize that it's not always about who's the best looking, who's the most outgoing. You find your group where you fit in. And he said as an adult, even, it's been much easier than it was as a child. So this is encouraging to hear on that too. Well, let's move on to your daughter now. So she is your baby, and I know that her birth had a big impact on your life, but tell us a little bit more about her journey.
She, like I said, is our miracle. And she just continues to surprise us. And we have always wanted to push her and challenge her to do as much as she can, but not push too hard. And we can see her growth. She, you know, started out itty bitty, 2 pounds, 11 ounces.
Wow.
Went through several surgeries, several critical times in the NICU, and couldn't eat or drink until she was 3 years old because she aspirated, everything went in her lungs, basically. That she tried to drink. So she was totally feeding tube dependent those years. She still is feeding tube dependent. She just cannot drink and eat enough, definitely fluids, to stay nutritionally where she needs to be. So she gets feeding tube throughout the day and then all night long. She we did lots and lots and lots of therapies. We drove twice a week. I drove both of them actually twice a week for just therapies, and then 2 other days a week for specialist appointments. But she has a very busy life with doctor's appointments, and we're still doing some therapies. It got to the point where we had to make a decision that doing all the therapies was actually not benefiting her because she was too tired and sick, and getting so many colds and from being at the therapy places, because she gets sick very, very easily if she gets tired. She's
Right.
12 and still takes naps.
Okay.
So she learned to walk, runs. She's a jokester. She's learning how to do little practical jokes. Her greatest joy in life is making other people smile. She just loves other people, which has been really hard for her during COVID because she had to be isolated until we could get to a point she could get past her booster shot. And so now she's been able to go out and see other kids, loves babies. And first time we went out, she got really sick, but we're having to make that care decision about quality of life. And so, yeah, she's our spunk. She's our miracle.
I was going to say, I've seen some of your posts on social media, and her smile would light up a room from what it looks like. It's just, she is a beautiful kid. It's but
She's
seeing the joy in her
live.
face, it comes
so
across. At her age now, what are some of the things that she enjoys doing?
Beth loves being around people. And when she's not able to do that, she loves playing with baby dolls. She has probably 30 baby dolls. We've got some of the ones that are like the reborns that look like real babies. Some of them even breathe. And so she lines them up in her bassinet. Just loves taking care of her baby dolls. She loves kicking a ball. She loves just playing, running around. She's kind of becoming a teenager in that she wants to be glued to her tablet, which we let her, do some. We limit, but she loves music, loves listening to music and dancing and singing, and she just loves life. She just loves, playing and just welcomes the new day, not knowing what it holds.
Has she ever done any of the adaptive sports or like Miracle League Baseball or anything like that?
We did Special Olympic soccer.
Okay.
2 years ago. We almost did it this spring. She wasn't quite cleared by her doctor, is what it came down to.
Well, maybe in the next year that'll be back again.
We're hoping. Yeah, we are really hoping.
I think, there's so much out there that, it's easy for a typically developing child to get involved in baseball and soccer and scouting, things like that. But I'm finding there's a lot of other programs out there that are available for our kids. And it's hard to find them sometimes. So it's nice to hear.
It is hard. We do have a lot in our area. We're very fortunate. I know there's a gymnastics program 2 miles from our house.
Oh, wow.
I'd like to find a dance program. The issue comes in where the cost, a lot of times, sometimes they're free, but then if they're not free, they're very costly. So
I've seen a few.
That's kind of what we've run into.
In North Carolina, I haven't seen any near us, but I've seen some in the Charlotte area. So I think probably closer to the bigger cities, and you're probably close enough to be able to.
We're
if
close
there
to
is something,
Nashville.
right? And then the other question, like we asked for your son, for parents who have a young child now, what advice would you give them as they're beginning this journey?
Just a tidbit of my personal story with our daughter's care needs and the pregnancy. I really struggled when both kids were young, and it was very difficult to take care of my own self, and that did not go well. I ended up having a severe mental health crisis, and so I would just say first and foremost, we have to take care of ourselves, especially when a child has any needs, even just one additional need. But if a child has multiple needs, that becomes very, very important to manage and to balance.
the blog that you have. It's the Special Needs Moms blog. And those that are listening, if you haven't seen this yet, we're going to put the link in the show notes so you can get there. But go and check out what she has. Some of the articles that I've seen that you've had recently, I think there was one actually on taking care of yourself, if I remember correctly. The you had some on like gifts for mom. I think you did during Mother's Day, and some travel things that your family has tried that's worked for them. And here it is, the managing the pressures of caregiving stress. I think you had that back about a month or so ago. So she's got some great content on there. So if you're listening, you haven't found it yet, go and check that out. And she's got some great resources, what she's written, but also some other links to other things too. So make sure that you check that out. And so the specialneedsmomsblog.com, is that correct?
Specialneedsmomsblog.com.
Specialneedsmomsblog.com. Okay, so we'll put that in the show notes as a direct link so you can get there whether you're on the YouTube channel or listening to the audio. So that'll be one you can click through to. And then do you have any other contact information that you want to share, or should they go through that to get to you?
Yeah, there's a contact page that's directly contacts me. I'd love to hear from listeners and help in any way I can. And definitely, like Tonya said, there are a lot of resources I've developed to help with parents. And my son and I actually wrote a book for siblings as well that's free.
I saw that on there, but I wasn't sure who had written it. So it was his book.
It was, when he was 12. Yeah, we co-wrote it. Yeah, support for siblings. So, so I hope you check all that out, those who are listening, and please contact me with questions or any way I can help.
When I saw that you do have a link for some free download resources as well. So look at the articles that she has, look at the book that he's put out, but also look at the free resources on that. And I think it's just emailed. Is that correct?
You just need to enter your email, which subscribes you to my weekly blog post and all the freebies I send out, the new free resources I create. And you do get the book free and the free daily planner organizer I created that I wish I had when my kids were young. And then you get the password to all the other downloadables.
Nice. Okay, so we'll put that in there. And then we're going to close out this part for now. But next week, we're going to continue our visit and talk about Kristin's work with Special Needs Moms blog and a recent article that she posted about how to maintain structure for your children over the summer vacation. This episode, we spent some time just getting to know her, but I want you to come back next week and listen to the one where we're talking about that specifically, because all of us need help in the summertime whenever our kids are home and we're kind of in different scheduling. Even my kids in college, we're all in different schedules right now.
Everybody needs a schedule.
So, Kristin, thank you for sharing with us today, and we'll continue this and let the others hear next week. You've been listening to the Water Prairie Chronicles. Any resources mentioned during this episode will be posted in the description. If you're interested in joining us as a guest, contact us through the links in the description below. Be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. We appreciate your support as we build this resource. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week for a new episode.